show up there and see if we can use that as a clue. Then we can kind of see, did the iPad truly push it to iCloud and then come to the Mac, or did the Mac truly push it to iCloud, or did it never even leave the Mac? That's a way we can try and get a little closer.
So it never verifies that I was using the right password.
Okay. So the question would be, does the dentist contact show up here or not? Okay, so the laptop officially talked to iCloud and dropped off this new information at iCloud. Now, did your device, which of your two devices, your phone and your iPad, were able to pick up dentist laptop tasks? Any of them? Or neither?
Not the last I checked.
Okay. Usually those changes come across pretty quickly, usually within a minute.
Okay, test, laptop test, new test, Steve test.
No dentist.
No test.
Okay. All right, so something about iCloud fetching changes. I'm sorry, something with the iPad.
This
Your
one
tablet
created
fetching.
it.
And handed it off to iCloud. That seems to be okay. Something about the iPad checking into iCloud to get new changes seems to be a problem.
Could possibly Wi-Fi. We'll see if it'll show up in a moment. But I've been able to communicate both ways.
Dudley had a question about when his membership expired.
Yes.
It's June.
Oh, okay. This coming June.
Yep.
When it works really well.
So that all seems
Appreciate
to
it.
work.
I'll be seeing you
I think
in a few
this
minutes.
works well, but the phone is the real zinger. You know, it just.
Yeah, June
I
15th
had Carol's
for both you and Dudley.
significant other. I had her in my favorites.
There was a question I was going to ask, but I didn't want to give plenty of other people an opportunity about the
I had her in my
OTG
favorites.
flash drives. If you could speak to those, you may have seen the annual issue of the Rochester Distributor Society newsletter.
Phone
Had
number,
an article about them
but no longer her
And,
contact information.
as they relate to backup and
And
cell
then I
phones.
waited.
So,
Haven't heard of an OTG flash drive.
Yeah, they said they're new. But let me get the article. You can probably read it during the time
The
right
thing that I
now.
have done is in settings on the phone.
On the go.
iCloud,
How's that different from a regular flash drive?
pick which settings you want. And what I've done in the past is I wanted one to represent contacts.
No, it's already.
Let's see, let's see about
There's a review from 2014.
Where's the article?
contacts.
It's a couple
I'm gonna
pages.
switch that off. You have the little thing there. It'll say if you've got some that are on the phone but not in
All you
iCloud,
have to do is
you can either keep them on the phone or nuke them. In the past, what I've chosen is to nuke them. Then let it finish that. Then go back and turn it back on. That tells your phone, hey phone, go talk to iCloud.
Yeah, none of this works with the iPhone. It's only Android phones.
They did mention iOS in there in the article, so my basic question was, how would you critique the article?
It should start, once this finishes, it should start populating your contacts.
Yeah, many Android phones have a SD card slot or a USB connection. Many of them don't, so that's frustrating. We were talking about that Saturday. The Galaxy 6 has slots, the Galaxy 7 doesn't. So Dave is waiting for the Galaxy 8 to come out sometime this year. I have seen a couple of Wi-Fi flash drives that they're physically smaller than like the C Fuel I showed, but they cost about the same for 30 gigs versus 1,000 gigs. And it works. It's got a wireless router built in so you can use it with your iDevice, and then a USB connection to use it with your computer. And then the regular cloud storage companies too. Yeah, the big thing with cloud storage is to excuse me, watch your cellular usage. If you don't want to run up your cell data plan, uploading to cloud storage. January. I don't know if I got this one yet. I probably did, and it's in my pile of things to read. Thanks.
Sure. So, Cody went to the meeting last night.
I bought this just to see what I use it.
So,
Yeah.
I made a pretty big email.
First of all, it's way too small, I can't read. My lady, she reads the regular standard size. All she uses.
I set up a Dropbox account. I was just upload all your photographs to there. That's what I did.
Right.
And I can use Dropbox.
Different strokes, yep.
Dropbox is the worst one to use in terms of space. You only get 2 gigabytes free. Apple gives you 5 gigabytes free. Microsoft gives you 7 gigabytes free, and Google gives you 15 gigabytes free. Dropbox was one of the first to get popular, and so that's why it's a well-known brand. But you only get 2 gigs free, and you have to pay more for more.
Well, I have this major size report with a lot of pictorial data in there, and people tell me that that's the way they like to receive it, is via Dropbox. But I can't use it until I delete all the photographs that are there, which I think are all, it's okay to delete.
But you can send it from any of the cloud services. They just get a link. That doesn't matter what service it's coming from. In fact, Apple, when did they add it? Was it 10.10 or 10.11? Maybe 10.10. iCloud file transfer. So normally when you email a file, there is a limit to the size of the file. It's usually about 10 megs is the typical limit, often a lot less than that, which is 1 or 2 photos. So if you have a lot of photos or large files, you can't fit it through the email. So Apple has a service that will, in essence, you send an email to someone and put a link to your large file, and it actually sends a link to your iCloud drive. And they download it from your iCloud drive, not through the email.
So that's an Apple service.
Yeah.
How do I access that?
I'm trying to find the email option. So you can do it with just a regular file, but there's a way to email it. The feature they added in one of the recent, there we go, add an email attachment. All right, mail drop is the feature's name. Attach. When you choose, if it's too big, iCloud Mail asks you if you want to do it automatically.
Oh, that's iCloud Mail. That's how I access it.
Yeah.
No, I don't use that. I mean, I have the address, but I just didn't want to have a whole bunch of email accounts.
Yeah. Well, Google does the same thing. You use Gmail, you put it on your Google Drive, and then you can send them a link to that file. Yeah. You can create a private share, so only that one person has a link to that file.
Now, when I take a photograph on the iPhone and want to email it to somebody, just before send, it asks me what size, small, medium, large, or actual.
Mm-hmm.
I should have sent each one of them to see what the difference is, but I never did it. Because what do you suggest?
Depends on what the other end has. If they're using dial-up, you want to send the small. If they're using broadband, you can send large.
Well, for example, when I photographed the electric meter, emailed to RGB so that I didn't look at it physically. I can just transfer it so they can comprehend things.
Yeah, unless it's too big to fit through email, period. So when it gives you the size option, it should tell you what the size is and make sure it's below, say, 5 megs.
They've never told me, but on the other hand, it probably makes a difference on how many images can be sent at once.
Yeah.
In Dublin's case, I do all the meters in this building. So I have to send maybe 3 different emails to be sure they all go through.
Yeah, if they don't go through, you get a bounce.
Right.
So the safest thing is to send it smaller.
Okay.
But if it's too small, then the person at the other end can't see it.
For electricity meter dials, it's probably small in size.
Yeah.
It doesn't need precise detail, just where's that needed.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I send it small, I could have more of them on a single email.
Oh, his computer went to sleep. I'll go back to mine.
Did you resolve that issue I raised with the beginning about the can't access the links?
Were you on the CIDR network or the school district network? I was on the school district network and it didn't work. When I switched to the CIDR network, it did.
No, it's a 5G CIDR network. Try it again.
All right. Yeah, it's 8:30. We should probably get started again.
Yep.
It's such a huge crowd. It might take a while to get back in here.
Yeah. Maybe we can go home early. So if we get to the restaurant before 10, we get the full menu. After 10, we only get the light menu.
Where are you already?
Empire. What's the name of it? McGregor's on Empire.
Just to the right of the concentric arcs, you see that little wheel keeps spinning and spinning. And that's the most recent Facebook image I've been able to get, which was there 6 hours ago.
Facebook is probably blocked by the school. Kids aren't supposed to be on
Oh,
Facebook.
so the CIDR network piggybacks on that?
Yeah, it still goes through the school's internet
I had
service.
the same thing with eBay.
That may be blocked also.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't get to Facebook. It's blocked by the school.
And the school also blocks the Democratic Chronicle?
No, I got to that one.
Oh, earlier you couldn't.
But I think,
Yep, you're right.
it's
It
always
does work.
beneficial and it keeps everybody, absolutely. I don't know,
Oh, that's,
this other, because they're, he had a page with a listed a number of streets.
but if I switched on eBay, I switched over to LTD. LTE, I can do it okay though.
We'll check in.
Yeah, because then you're using your cell system separate from the school.
Okay. Now I'm right next door to that, but I'm gonna run it.
Yeah, now and then eBay auction runs during the middle of the meeting.
I'm getting close, it's tight, I guess. Sounds like they might be making their way that direction. One picture off the internet.
I don't know. All right, we are going to need to re-aim that camera as soon as Charlie gets back. Unless Lyle, you want to come down and re-aim that?
What do you want?
We got to re-aim the little camera.
Yeah, I'm not standing up anymore.
Oh, there's Charlie. Yeah. Yeah, it's got to come down. Or point it down a little more.
Oh, yeah, it flexes, so I've got to
Yeah.
down more.
A little bit. Maybe more than a little. We want to see. Yeah, that's good. And then maybe to the right a little.
Right.
So we'll center him. No, it's all right. No, the other way. Actually, yeah, Dennis, why don't you shift a little bit to your left?
I'm shifting to my left.
That way we don't get the screen on your picture too.
Better?
Yeah. So we're still getting a corner of the screen, but that's all right. So
I can go a little further.
turn the camera a little farther to the right. Or the way you were just doing it.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. That's good. Now, why is it doing that?
You like your height?
Why is it doing that?
No, we're getting some really weird. It's psychedelic on the feed.
Ooh, fun. Now, what I want is to get the presenter notes on my computer and not on the projector. So I'm going to go to systems and displays, and I think I have to unmirror them. Would that be
Yeah.
like so? And then this much. That I like.
All right. Are we all back in? Is that all of us? Is that all? Vicky, is that all of us? Okay.
Thanks, Vicky.
So welcome back.
And we're back.
And we're back. We should do a couple little bits of news here just to warn everyone. Time Warner Cable has been notified by the FBI that 320,000 customers, which is pretty much everyone, using the Roadrunner email service, their email addresses and passwords have been leaked.
They sent me some email about this saying, "Oh, your password, your account may have been leaked," and I'm like, "Right, sure, of course it was." It's hard to believe those things because I receive so many fake similar messages where they want me to click on a link and go and give them my password that I am wary of that. So now we've got the boy who cried wolf situation.
Email.
Yeah.
Password could be compromised.
We're going to talk all about those kinds of things.
It's not coming out very loud. So this was Channel 10's news, and they actually interviewed Nick talking about it. Let me see if I can get the volume up.
Now they're asking customers to change their passwords to a stronger and a more secure alternative.
I'm always concerned about my information. Now it makes me more concerned, yes.
If you are a Time Warner email customer like Cheryl Luigi, you may have been targeted by hackers. Time Warner announced today that about 320,000 customer emails and passwords might have been compromised. In a statement, Time Warner spokesperson Natalie Burgess said, in part, that the data breach had nothing to do with Time Warner Cable's systems or processes.
This is really important. They don't know how it happened.
Determined how the information was obtained.
Someone should be fired.
Customers like Cheryl frustrated.
Being that they provide internet, I think they should have enough security to protect us against something like that.
Time Warner said they are reaching out to customers who may have been affected by this data breach by sending out letters and emails like this, asking customers to change their passwords.
I would definitely do that, yes. But that still doesn't mean, I don't think that guarantees anything.
Tech expert Nick Francesco said Cheryl is right. Nothing is ever 100%. I asked him, what can customers do to protect themselves?
Well, we tell people time and time again, never use the same password on 2 different systems.
Nick tells me we should always monitor our computer too.
You should dance the security tango regularly, securitytango.com, and that, will check your system and clean out most viruses and worms and et cetera, et cetera.
Francesco also said that you can use browser extensions that tell you whether a website is secure or not. Nina Porciuncula, News 10 NBC.
Good information. Nina, thank you for that report.
So basically, if you're using Roadrunner email, you should probably change your password. And it's a annoying website.
Well, last night at 11, we first told you Time Warner.
I don't need that to play again. Thank you.
You.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't necessarily remember their master account because, I use a custom account, MacMan at rochester.r.com.
Right.
I have to log in. I can log in as my master account, or I can log in as that MacMan account in order to change the password. So you have to know your existing password in order to change the password. And a lot of people don't remember their existing password because the computer remembers it for you. So that adds an extra step of looking into your keychain to find what that password is. And with that, the keychain is one of the password managers that Dennis will probably talk about.
That's right. So I got an email from Steve a couple of months ago, and he said, "Hey, everybody really liked your managing multiple Macs presentation," and I thought for a minute. I said, "Really?" Because that's something that I know I'm into, but I didn't really realize it would have that broad appeal. But anyway, I assumed that he was telling the truth, and I said, "Okay, thank you." He said, "Do you want to do another presentation? I know you did one about passwords a while ago. We could definitely use a refresher on that."
And I'm a little upset that more people aren't here tonight. I guess the weather scared them away.
Well,
this is such an important topic.
They're probably resetting their Time Warner passwords.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm sure they'll catch that on the recording later on. So I'm going to do my best with this and get this fired up here, like so. Hey, nice. Okay, so there is this idea in the technology world that there is this thing called best practices, and this is the phrase that gets thrown around a lot, which basically means, is anybody else doing this, and are they doing it okay, and is it fairly successful? Maybe we should do what they're doing. And a lot of people use that as kind of a Me Too approach to security. Sometimes you can't really afford to do best practices for whatever reason. Either you don't have the money to do it, or you don't have the time to do it, or you don't have the talent to do it. So I like to think not only about using best practices, but at a minimum using what I call better than yesterday practices. So if you can't afford those in terms of time, talent, or money, then here are some things to consider. Now, there are a lot of passwords out there in the world. If you want to order a pizza on somebody's website, you want to go to Papa John's and order a pizza, or to Pizza Hut, or whatever your favorite local place is, they're going to want a password. If you want to go buy something online, they're going to want a password. If you go to check your email, they're also going to want a password. No matter what you want to do these days, it seems as if this is the most common way that people, that websites and computer systems in general want to authenticate you. They are the way that you prove that you are you, by telling the computer only something that you and the computer know, that you've both agreed on. So on your computer, you've got a lot of these things. You've got a user account to worry about. You've got a password manager built in called Keychain Access, and it uses a password to make sure that you're the person who's allowed to know all of its passwords. So you've got the keychain. You've got networks like Wi-Fi networks that want to make sure that you are somebody who's allowed to use their network. If you connect remotely to work, or to a school, or if you have a secure virtual private network or VPN connection, that's going to want a password. If you're at work and you have a file server, or if you have a Drobo or Synology network attached storage device at your home to keep track of all of your files, it's going to want a connection, and that's going to require a password. Apple themselves has something called an Apple ID that they use to represent your connection with their company, and what things you are allowed to do at their website, and what credit card you have associated with your account. And that hides behind a password. If you want to go check your email, you need a password. So there are no shortage of these things, but you might think, yeah, that is a lot. But it gets worse. If you're using a webmail tool, if you are on a social network like Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, or any one of other 24 social networks. If you do any online banking, if you do online investing, if you are checking on your kids' grades at their school, if you're going to the Cider forums, or if you are making contact with your credit card providers and getting information about your latest purchases, they are going to want a password too. It is all too much. It's too much to keep track of. And the problem is when people get overwhelmed by too much effort and too much being asked for them, they start looking for shortcuts. And the problem is, the companies have recognized that people want an easier way to do this, but they know that easier is at the opposite end of the spectrum from secure. And they're trying to figure out, how do I make sure that things stay as secure as I can? So you end up with these situations where you've got passwords, and the people who want you to create accounts and create passwords start making requirements. So they have requirements like it has to be a certain length. It has to have capital letters. It has to have numbers somewhere in it. It has to have prime numbers. It has to have special characters. But then they'll tell you that some special characters are allowed and other special characters aren't. And then, to make it worse, sometimes the passwords even expire after 30 days, or 60 days, or 90 days, or 1 year. And that makes things hard to keep track of, and hard to remember, and hard to type in. And again, hard is the opposite of memorable, and hard is the opposite of easy. And people don't like things that are hard, and people don't like things that unfortunately aren't easy. So people come up with ideas. So this is a local, well, local sort of. This is a guy named Joel Kissel who wrote a book about how to take control of your passwords, and a web comic that somebody made for him. And it talks about things that people do to try and create shortcuts for themselves, and also how the bad guys get around it. So the first one is a person who says, I like passwords that are easy to remember, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Isn't that the same one you have in your luggage, Steve? Yeah. So it's the thing is, that's ridiculously easy to guess. You wouldn't even need help to do that. The next guy says, I like to make my passwords harder to crack, so I mix words and numbers. No one will guess Zombie Cat 12, but the password tools that bad guys have access to do what's called a dictionary attack, where they can attempt all the words in the dictionary, and all the words in the dictionary spelled backwards, and all the words in the dictionary where numbers replace vowels. And it's the kind of thing that they can figure out quickly. The third guy says, I just use the same password for everything. It makes life so much easier. I only have to remember one of them. But as soon as one website has a break-in, and as soon as one company's set of credentials are out in the wild, the bad guy now knows how to get into every single site trying that same password. And the fourth person says, only my password program knows my super long random password, and it's not telling anyone. And the bad guy says, well, that's pretty good, but I bet if I know the answers to some of those password reset questions, you know, the ones that ask you, what was your mother's maiden name? What was the name of your first pet? What was the name of that car? What was the name of your dad's second car? What make and model was it? Or what street did you grow up on? Those are things that are a lot easier to figure out than you'd think. And the bad guy can use that to then reset your super long, complex, random password to anything he wants. And now he knows it and you don't.
And there's kind of a new attack like that where, especially if you're on Facebook, you'll see these games. You know, what's your gangster name or what's your rapper name?
Right.
And the questions they ask to give you your gangster name, you know, what's the street you grew up on, and your first car. Well, those are your security questions on other websites.
Right. Yes. Yes. Your MC Elm Buick. So this guy named Joel Kissel wrote this great book. It's available. We'll talk more about it later on. But the question becomes, all right, so we've got these passwords that we're really behind. We've got passwords that are hard to remember, but fairly secure. We've got password reset questions that we need to come up with a strategy for. And again, it's all too much, and we need a plan of attack and a tool to help us. So there are things you can do. All hope is not lost. One of the things that I recommend is using a password manager. A password manager is a piece of software that is fundamentally a database. and it stores its own information in an encrypted form. If a bad guy ever got to your password manager, they would not be able to open it. And to attempt to decrypt it would take a capital R really, capital L long, capital T time to do. There are a number of different password managers out there. The most common one that I like to use is called onepassword, and I'll explain why I like it soon. There are other ones like LastPass or KeePass that operate very similarly. If you only have one Mac and you don't have a phone where you need to worry about these things, or you if you only have one Mac, that keychain access tool is built into every Mac. It is just as secure and just as good. And in general, I think since I made this slide deck, it has improved to the point where you can synchronize some passwords with your iOS devices.
Yeah, it's part of the iCloud keychain syncing now.
Right. So in addition, you can do some other things to make passwords more secure. There is this concept of, everybody remembers multiplication from primary school. You have one or more factors that you're multiplying together to come up with an answer called a product. In cryptography and in secret keeping, adding additional factors means that you have to get all of those individual factors correct in order to arrive at the right result. There's this concept of two-factor authentication. The password that you know in your brain is one of those, so something you know, and a second factor could be something you have. So there are companies that will make applications available to you that will help you with a second factor. The place where I work, at the University of Rochester, if you want access to university systems, or if you want access to your human resources account, you have to provide a second factor. In our case, we tell the U of R about a device that we have with us, and we can use a computer to log into secure areas, or areas that we want to protect. And when we log in, the next thing that happens is my phone buzzes. And my phone says, hey, somebody is trying to get into your account at the U of R. Was that you? And if it is you, you just tap on the green check mark and say, yep, that was me. And it lets you in. A bad guy would have to either guess my password and steal my phone, set up his own phone on the system, which is difficult to do, and know my password. But he has to have both of those things in order to access that secure area. The Mac OS itself, if you log in with your iCloud password, you can also set up a very similar system with your iPhone. And it means if somebody came into your house and stole your Mac, they would not be able to log into it, and they would not be able to get to any sensitive information you have on it, or they would not be able to log in as you without having that second factor of authentication. That's something that's new, I believe, in either 10.11, which is El Capitan, or possibly in 10.10. I'd have to look that up to be sure. Financial institutions are moving towards this appropriate second factor of authentication because they want to protect your money, and it's worth it to them to issue you a token or to automatically text you a 6-digit number, and for you to enter that number along with your password to prove that you are you. It's more likely to be you if it's something you know, that password, and something you have, a second way of finding you. So there are other things we can do. One is to try and limit the number of places that specifically know about you. You might start seeing things like this. The arrow's pointing to a section of this login page that lets you log in with what I'll call Federated Authentication. These are websites that say you can either make an account with us Or if you've already got an account with a place that's already done some homework on who you are, you know, we trust them that you are who you say you are. You can log in with your Facebook credentials, and you can get into our Vimeo site with that. Similarly, if you are on Yahoo, they do a similar thing that says you can log in with your Yahoo ID to get to here, this website. I think this was Flickr. And otherwise, if you want to log in with a different account, we support these other login methods as well. So there are multiple ways to help you. A second factor is a good way to keep you protected. But what's the big idea? The big idea is for the factor of no, the thing that's in your head, the passphrase is the thing that you want to use. Don't be thinking about passwords, be thinking about passphrases. And the reason for this is passwords are short. They're just as long as a word that you can think of, maybe with some extra digits, maybe with some extra punctuation thrown in there, some extra special characters, percent signs, hash signs, octothorpes, I believe they're known as. Steve's going to talk about a website called the, what do they call this? The How Big Is Your Haystack? Yep. The digital haystack tool. This is a tool that helps you judge how hard would it be for a computer to guess the password that I have been using. Now, they don't keep track of the lists of what gets typed in here. They don't ever worry about this. But this is a way for you to go there yourself and get a sense of how hard would it be to for a computer to do nothing but try and guess my password. And the thing about passwords is size matters. Well, when I say size, I mean how long is the password. So this is a relatively well-known webcomic. And they were talking about passwords. And they were saying, you know, what you can do is you can come up with a really long word and put on some punctuation and a number at the end, and you might switch that around. You might come up with ways to substitute some letters and to capitalize some letters. And there are things for the computer to guess. And it can work through all the permutations of those things pretty fast. They call each of those guesses that it has to make a bit of entropy. So in this case, they're talking about how many bits of entropy would a common word plus a few different changes have, and they think that that's roughly 28 bits. So they say if they did 1,000 guesses a second, it would take 2 to the 28th guess, or 3 days. So that's a relatively plausible number, or at least it was when this was created a couple of years ago. And they said that's trivial for computers. That's easy. But the problem is it's really hard to remember. You know, it was a word, I think. It was related to, I'm not sure what. No, it was that troubadour word. One of the O's was a 0, it says. And there was some symbol there, and it's really hard to remember that. But if you do something that you take common words and just concatenate those together, stick them like a parade from one end to the other, you've got a really long password. You've got no crazy numbers in them. You got no punctuation in there. And it goes from one end to the other. You end up with a lot of bits of entropy. In this case, they use the phrase correct horse battery staple. And those are all common words. They're straight out of the dictionary. But because they are all put together, they're easy to type. They're words that your brain already knows. And you get 44 bits of entropy. And if you were to guess at 1,000 guesses a second, it would take roughly 550 years to figure that out. So it's a lot harder for a computer to guess, but it's a lot easier for a person to remember. So it's the kind of thing where you have to come up with, ideally, a passphrase, not a password. And why do we have to do this? Well, the thing is that the bad guys are really smart, and they write tools so that they don't have to do a lot of work. And the tools have never been better. And the bad guys have more and more capability to try more and more things, and it's easy for them to try lots of approaches and come up with this. The thing that I recommend is to educate yourself about an appropriate strategy that you can use to keep track of these things. Luckily, the guy, Joel Kissel, that we mentioned earlier, he works along with Adam Engst at the Take Control series, and he wrote a book about this very thing. It's called literally Take Control of Your Passwords by Joe Kissel. It's available as an ebook, and if you use the Cider webpage, Cider will get a portion of the $10 that the book costs. But if you use this coupon code, the one that's on the screen here, you can get $3 off. So be sure to take that down. I'll make sure to put this slide up when we're done. I did test this coupon code today before I came tonight. It does still work. So it will take that $10 ebook down to $7. It's a great resource, and I recommend checking that out. The tool that I like to use is called onepassword, and I'm going to do a brief walkthrough of why I like it very soon. But if you think that Take Control of Your Passwords is worth checking out, they have a sister book called Take Control of One Password. And again, it's $10. And again, if you buy it through the Cider webpage, Cider will get a portion of that. And if you use this coupon code, which again is the same code as the one before, you'll get $3 off of that too. You can find that one at takecontrolbooks.com/onepassword. If you want to learn more about the Haystack website or that Ars Technica columns that I mentioned there about passwords being weaker than ever and the bad guys being stronger than ever, you can definitely check these out as well. And that's the end of the slideshow. So now it's on to the discussion and the demo of onepassword. So I'm going to hide this and bring up onepassword. Onepassword is a piece of software. If you're buying it outright, you can buy it for your Mac. If you buy it once, you can install it on all the Macs that you use. And the first thing it does is it says, who are you? And it wants to know that you are who you say you are. So I enter in a really long phrase here. Ideally, let me try this. Thank you.
No.
Command Shift 1.
Command F1. On certain websites, yes, which is a problem. Because some websites, the maximum password is too short.
So this is the onepassword tool. And again, it's going to be a little trickier to show here. I would like to try and bump up that resolution if I can. Let me see if that's something I can do. Right. How about now? That's a little better. This is onepassword. It allows me to have things called vaults. A vault is a file that keeps track of individual username and password pairs. But onepassword is capable of doing much, much more than that. And it has a number of features that I find really helpful. It can categorize the things that you store within it. You can store logins in one section, special notes that you have. You can, here's a question that I knew I wanted to keep track of later on. This was a tool that I wanted to keep track of. I knew I wanted to keep my employee ID there, but there isn't much you can do with that. I have all my databases. I have some information about things I want to keep track of, but not necessarily difficult to figure out items. When I want to add a new item, I can pick what it is. Oh, if I have a phishing license, I can put that in there. Bank account information, I can pick what it is. Now, most of the time, I'm just using the password. So I could say Cider demo password. And I could say that my password is 12345, and it lets me know immediately. Strength, nearly nothing. It's like, what are you thinking? No. But if I add random stuff after it, it says, oh yeah, that's much better. Now let's say I don't want to pick it. I don't want to even know it. I just want it to be strong. It can allow me to specify the length, and it will create the password for me. Well, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to remember this. But if it's for a given website, for instance, let's say it's for Amazon, there is a web browser plugin that when I go to Amazon, I can click the onepassword button up in the button bar, and it will say, you're at Amazon. Hang on, I've got a password for that. As long as you prove to the computer that you are the person who ought to be using this particular vault, it will go and find that tool, onepassword, and go and fetch this big long string, and that is what it will pass off to Amazon. It will never show it on the screen. It will never show it in a place where people can see it. But it will do this behind the scenes, and this will be very, very difficult for people to guess. Keychain is a different tool. Keychain is a tool for keeping track of things specifically on your Mac and optionally on other devices as well. But you could copy these credentials into a keychain entry and paste them in.
I can show off keychain too.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. The other thing I like about onepassword is it has the flexibility to live on multiple machines and to live on iOS devices as well. And much like iCloud, it allows for me to enter credentials on one device and then have those records stored not only on that device, but again on my other connected devices as well.
Yeah, that's what the remote people, Rick and Jim, are watching at home. So everyone say hi to Rick and Jim.
Hello, Rick and Jim. Thanks for watching.
And they said that they can't see the screen.
The
anymore.
resolution is rough. Huh?
Too small, yeah.
Okay, well, it is a balancing act between ridiculously comically large here. Let's see.
10 by 7?
Displays, right?
Yeah.
8 by 6. Are you sure you want to do that?
Why don't you get 10 by 7? That's interesting.
What I see is what I see.
Try scaled on the other built-in display. No.
I'm not sure what to tell you. So we'll try this. So this is a way to make use of this. If I say, well, we'll make it the British one. It will let me know that. You can add, if this is information that you want to keep track of, like a credit card. Let's say I had a newly minted credit card. And it is my, come on. It's my Cider Amex card.
Cool. I need one of those.
Yeah. You can say that the cardholder name is Steve Ray. It's an American Express card. The number is, 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. You can say the verification number on the back is 554. You can put in your expiration dates. So what this can be almost is a nice backup if, say, your wallet gets stolen or if you lose your wallet. You can put in who the issuing bank is, what's their phone number, what's the toll-free number, do they have an international number, how do I get to their website, is there anything I need to know about it, is there a credit limit that I need to keep track of, what's the interest rate, there's something you might want to know. And what do I need to know about this, and do I have a tag, like should this go on my section 4, this is my discretionary spending versus my month-to-month bills. This is a place where you can keep track of a lot of those things. So it's a database tool that gives you a lot of pigeonholes to fill about any particular piece of sensitive information that you want to keep separate. You can also put in things like software licenses. So here's a tool that I've used in the past and here's the license key associated with it. You can see how much I paid for it and what was my order number. So if I ever need to go back, I can figure that out. You can see the old version of onepassword that I had here and the new version that I just bought. It's all there. The password file is its own thing. You can see that I just bought it recently. It really allows you to keep track of lots and lots of useful things for all kinds of people. And as soon as this is locked, you really don't have to worry that something's going to happen to it because it is entirely self-contained. On the iOS device, it goes one step further. Modern iOS devices literally have a fingerprint reader built into the home button. And they can tell the difference between somebody who has stored their fingerprint on the fingerprint reader and some random person off the street. OnePassword takes advantage of this and will show you the contents of your OnePassword vault if you've unlocked it recently by allowing you to put your finger on the fingerprint reader. So I don't even have to type in my long password multiple times. Once I've unlocked it and I've told it to allow me back in, a fingerprint is all you need. So they charge you once for the Mac tool and they charge you again for the iOS tool. So they've caught a little bit of flack about that over the past few years. They are still doing it that way. It's not a cheap tool. The out-the-door cost for the Mac version is $50. The out-the-door cost for the iOS version, I have to look up, but it was not horrible considering that you're storing sensitive information in there. And they have been very, very good about their upgrade pricing. And I think that's a tool that is going to allow them to continue to keep all the clients and the customers that they care about. So that is my favorite tool and the reasons why a password manager can make a lot of sense. There are other password managers, and Steve's going to talk about one that's built into your Mac next. Before we do that, are there any questions about passwords in general that we can answer? Yes. The question was, did LastPass have a breach?
They had a, what did they call it? A possible data loss, but not critical. I forget exactly how they worded it.
According to LastPass themselves, last July, they had some sort of event, and they've talked about what they've done to disclose it and what they've done to make changes and improve their service. But I'd have to read further in here to
yeah, as I remember,
details.
There was no potential for customer data loss, but it was a procedural issue on his part. The one nice thing with LastPass, similar to OnePassword, is the vault is encrypted, it's salted and hashed, which are technical terms.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, sounds delicious, but it means it's really hard for the bad guys to get in. And so the customer data was never
in jeopardy.
In jeopardy, thank you. The one thing with LastPass is they just did get purchased by another company. I always forget who. Was it LogMeIn? Yeah.
LogMeIn.
So they got purchased by LogMeIn, which is a remote access company. So far, Joe, so LastPass was a guy, Joe, and he built this huge, very well-respected and very well-written program. And so now he's been purchased by LastPass. And so far, he is still maintaining the code. He's maintaining the program. He just has more resources to do it with. So one of the podcasts I listen to is called Security Now, about internet security issues. On the Twit network, and they have been keeping up to date on LastPass, and so far there's nothing to worry about. I think Lyle, you had a question too?
You said that would be access to it from multiple devices, all Apple devices, also on the PC.
They also have a PC client, and you can synchronize the vaults between Mac and PC, between iOS and Mac, and between iOS and PC. They have a couple of different ways to share that information. The most common way is to take that vault file, that encrypted file, and put it on a cloud storage tool like Dropbox. That's something that both devices can get to. Another way that they have recently rolled out is the ability to put that on your iCloud drive. And that only works between Mac and iOS, as far as I understand it at this time. So there are multiple ways to do that. There is also a local sharing way where if you have both devices and they're on the same network, like at your house, then they can both talk to each other, and you can just store it on a computer. But it's a relatively flexible tool.
Charlie. So basically the question is, can you use two different password management programs at the same time? Short answer is yes, but it'll get confusing as to which service has which password saved in it, or if you're trying to save the password into both services. So you probably want to standardize on one password manager and stick to that one.
According to this, according to their iTunes preview page, the OnePassword app for iOS, that is for the iPhone and iPad, is currently free.
Well, that's nice.
That was surprising. Sure, yeah, once you enter it, you have the ability to make it go away. So for instance, if I go back to this one, and I want to make that Cider Amex go away, I can choose to edit it and move it to the trash. And at that point, I think it goes down here, and you can see all the things I'm ready, and then to show those things. But yeah, you can make things go away.
Charlie?
Yeah. You know, these businesses, the automated programs trying to passwords.
Mm-hmm.
Do most sites, for example, allow you to keep private browsers and
Originally, no. Many sites now have the ability to lock an account if multiple unsuccessful password attempts happen. The common tool is not a brute force attack. The common approach now is find somebody with a weak password or attempt to get into the back office, the digital back office of a company, and get access to the entire set of records, the database where they keep track of their accounts, and use that to get an email address that represents you, and the password that you used along with that is kind of that keyboard, I'm sorry, that email and password pair, and then try that somewhere else. So for instance, let's say you have an Amazon account that is your Gmail account, and they get a password to your Amazon account. The first thing they're going to do is go over to Gmail, because they know that's where the email address is, and try that same password and see if they can log in. Once they have that, then they can use that email address as a password reset. They can go to iCloud and say, I need to reset my password for this Gmail address that I got from Amazon. And then they can jump through whatever hoops are necessary and potentially reset your iCloud account. And again, once they have that tool, then they can leverage that against other things. And the more times you're using the same password in multiple places, the more likely that is to happen.
It's less likely for the attacks to take place on the web, type of password, see if it works or not, and more likely to be a back-end attack to the database that stores the passwords at the other end.
If you let onepassword create random passwords for you, then the password that you use at any one site is going to be completely unique. It won't be reused at some other site, or it would be you'd have a better chance of winning the Powerball tonight than it being reused.
You can't win because I'm gonna.
I can't win because I didn't buy a ticket.
Yeah.
I still got my $2.
And because you can create long passwords, they make them harder to guess even in those brute force attacks. So this is my screen is up, right? Yeah, the password haystack calculator from GRC, and so this calculates how long it would take to do a brute force, which is trying every possible letter combination. For the password, if they could do it online at 1,000 guesses per second, it would take 7 years. But if they don't have to do it online in real time and they have an access to the database that they can crack, it will take 2 seconds for a fast attack, or 1,000th of a second for a massive attack. And we have seen massive attack systems built using hundreds or even thousands of graphic processor cards. A typical graphic card might have 100 or more cores on it, and can do 100 things at the same time. So you can get these massive arrays of graphics cards that can do billions of guesses per second. So their offline fast is 100 billion guesses per second. That's reasonable for one of these offline attacks. So if a database leaks and the bad guys have access to it, they can try to brute force it. And so having so one thing this doesn't check for is how stupid the password is, because the bad guys use dictionary words and they use the list of most common passwords to try first. So password is a fairly silly password. But if I start adding things to it, and especially if I do uppercase and lowercase and symbols, now we're looking at trillions and billions of centuries to guess a long password. And if you want to, as we've said, we're trying to remember to stop saying password and say passphrase. You can use a long passphrase. So that's very long, 36 characters long. It's relatively easy to remember, but the bad guys don't necessarily know how long your password is. So they'll try one letter, all the combinations, 2 letters, all the combinations. On Security Now, somebody found a bank that allowed a 2-character password. It would not allow 1 character, so they did have a check for how long the password is, and 1-character passwords were not allowed, but 2-character passwords were allowed to a bank. And so the longer your password is, makes more impact than the complexity by putting symbols and special characters. And as Dennis said, some websites don't allow some special characters. So you could use the @ sign and the pound, but you may not be able to use the asset or the radical sign. So now I'm up to trillion centuries. Just search for password haystack and you'll find it. Yeah, it's grc.com/haystack.htm. And the reason we have the need for password haystacks is that there have been so many breaches. There's another website called Have I Been Pwned? Pwned is sort of hacker computer speak for I own your computer. And so there's about 255 million pwned accounts. The biggest, most serious breach has been Adobe. They lost 152 million accounts. This is basically searching for email accounts. So this doesn't include the Target breach or the Home Depot breach. That was credit card numbers, because your those credit cards have all been replaced by the issuer. So you can type in your email address, and I will do mine. And I have not been pwned, so that email address has not been pwned. The Roadrunner information has not been added to the pwnage yet, because Roadrunner accounts have been pwned. But one thing that I did run into is my work address has been pwned, because I signed up for Adobe using my work address. So it was a work thing. I signed up for it. So my password at Adobe was breached, and so I had to change the password back when the Adobe breach came out. So that was October of 2013. So because Adobe's password was breached, if I happen to use that same password on Amazon or Google or PayPal, as Dennis was saying, they can log into my Amazon account with that password and steal my money. They can log into my Google account with that password and reset my Amazon password. So it's very important to not use the same password on multiple sites because of these cross-site breaches that can happen. So the keychain program is built into your Mac, and you're probably already using it even if you don't know you are. And the two things it generally saves immediately is your email password for sending and receiving email. So when you open your mail program, it doesn't ask you to save your email or to type your password every single time. And it also saves website passwords. So if I go to a website I haven't been to before, well, that's the problem. Every time I demo this, it's hard to find a site I haven't been to before. But if I go to a site I have been to before, I can, the keychain will have remembered my password. Looks like we can't get to Yahoo. Let's try Yahoo Mail, see if that will let me in. The keychain has remembered that password and fills it in for you. Now, when you create a new account, I'm going to tell it I'm going to make a new account. Can we get in? No, we can't get in. We're having proxy issues through the school. When you're creating a new account, so I have to log out of this account so I can create a new account.
And the other one, sign up.
Yeah, I can add an account and say new. There we go, create. Is that going to let me? All right, so there's two things have happened here. So when I type in my password, I'll get a message from Keychain asking if I want to save that password. And so Safari will ask me to save the password, and it will save it in Keychain. There is a new service that came out in 10.8 or 10.9, I forget where along, called iCloud Keychain, where it stores your keychain on iCloud and then can synchronize it between all your devices. And part of that feature is Safari suggested passwords. So it knows I'm in a password field, and it has suggested this password for me. And I can use that suggestion, and it will now save that password in the keychain for me. I don't have to remember that password. I don't have to memorize that password because the keychain saves it. And whenever I go back to this website, the keychain will fill that password back in for me. And so that's handy because it's a long password, so it's hard to guess. Also, it will create a different password for every website you go to. So you don't have, excuse me, you don't have to worry about the cross-site breaches. So it's built into the computer, and is always being used whenever a website asks if you want to save that password. It's going into the keychain, so you're probably already using it. If you want to see your passwords, then you can go to your utilities folder in the applications folder and open the keychain. And the icon looks like a set of keys, which is kind of neat. I like the detail some of these people put into icons. And so here is my keychain on this computer. I have 493 passwords saved. And so say I want to log into a website, and I don't, let me find one I can actually show here. I want to see what a password is. I don't know, I can do this. I don't believe you can print them, no. And it doesn't really help anyway, because it doesn't show you the password. It shows you the account credential. So this is a password that was saved for account.woot.com. Woot. And so this is just a list of the saved items without actually showing you the password yet. So these are just the password items you have saved. If I double click on that to open it, it's telling me it's an internet password. It tells me the account name I used, and the account name for almost every service is your email address, which is why it's so bad to have your email address pwned by one service, because that's what you've used on all the other services too. And if I click on the Show Password button, it's going to then ask me for the computer password. So your keychain is encrypted by your computer's password, and that's the password you create the first time you set up your account. So if anyone gets your keychain file, they still can't see your passwords. They need your master password. So that's the one password you have to remember is your master password. Same thing with onepassword. That's why they call it onepassword. The one password you have to remember is your master password, the password for the computer in the case of keychain. And so you would type that password in and then click allow. I don't like the idea of always allow, so that means that anyone who walks up to your computer can see those passwords all the time without typing your password again. So you can allow that password entry, and then it will show you the password in the box. And that will let you then see what the password is. So if you forget your password, you can look in the keychain to see what the password is. So if you forget your master computer password, you cannot get it back.
Period.
Period.
And that's by design.
By design, yes. You can reset your password to something else in a couple of different ways. If you have two administrator accounts, or if you have another account that is an administrator, you can reset the password of any account on your computer. One of the things we have been suggesting, which also helps with the malicious software getting installed, is do not run as an administrator. When you first set up your Mac, you create a username and password, and it's automatically an administrator account. And the administrator account has special privileges to do super things. And unfortunately, the bad software can do things too because you're logged in as an administrator. So what we have been trying to recommend, and we kind of hope Apple will do this by default, is create a standard user in order to do all your regular work in. And whenever you want to install a program, for example, you need to be an administrator. Whenever you want to change settings, you need to be an administrator. And then you can type in your administrator password. So that makes it a lot safer to run your computer when you're not an administrator. You can change your setup as it is now by typing in your password. So we'll get back to resetting your password in a minute. So this is an administrative function, creating users. So I have to type in my password to authenticate that I know the password for this computer. And then I can hit the plus sign, and I can make a new administrator password. And so I get a second account that's an administrator, so I can tell it to be an administrator account. And then you'll log out of your current account, so you've got a log out command, and then log into your new administrator account, you can then change the account you always have used to a standard account. So as long as you have one administrator, you can make your regular account a standard account. And that helps with a lot of malicious software on the internet, because then it can't get into your computer because you're not an administrator. So as an administrator, since I am currently logged in as an administrator, I can look at this other account and I can reset the password. There is no way for me to know what that password was. It just resets and makes a new password. So every password in the keychain is then lost, because the keychain is saved under the master password. So you'll have to retype your email passwords, your website passwords, your banking passwords, all those other passwords that you probably don't remember. So then you have to go through the I forgot procedure on all those websites. So it's very, very important to remember your master password. In newer operating systems, you can also use your Apple ID password. So if you forget your computer password, you can use your Apple ID password to reset your computer password. However, we find most people have forgotten their Apple ID password more frequently than their computer password. So if you do forget your Apple ID password, you can go to Apple's website, iforgot.apple.com, and you can reset your Apple ID password. Don't just make a new Apple ID. Anything you've purchased and all of your iCloud syncing is done under your Apple ID. So if you make a new Apple ID, you lose access to all that stuff you purchased and all your photos and everything that are synced through that old Apple ID. So if you happen to forget your Apple ID, go to the iforgot.apple.com to reset your password instead of making a new one. Most people's Apple IDs are their email address. If you change email addresses, we've seen people will make a new Apple ID with that email address. You don't have to do that. You can manage your Apple ID at appleid.apple.com and change your Apple ID. So how many people's Apple IDs is an old email address they don't use anymore? A lot of people. So you can go to appleid.apple.com, log in with that old Apple ID email address, and one of the options you'll have is the ability to change your Apple ID so that you can change your Apple ID to your new email address, so you don't have to keep worrying about that old email address. And then you should also reset your recovery email address, which is probably the old email service that you don't have anymore. Yeah. So Yahoo decided in their stupid infinite wisdom, what's the phrase? The quantity of stupid in the universe is infinite and ever growing. Yahoo decided that if you don't use your Yahoo Mail account for a while, and I don't remember what a while is, 6 months, maybe a year, they will cancel your account and let someone else use that email address. Theoretically, because too many people were signing up for accounts and never using them, and then so too many people named Steve signed up for steve@yahoo.com. So if Steve doesn't log in, someone else named Steve can get it. So that means if you don't log into your account for a while and it times out and resets, then someone else can get that address. And if that address happens to be your recovery address for Google or PayPal or Amazon or Citibank or anything like that, they now get all the messages intended for you. So that's one of the problems with using some of the free email services. Right now, as near as we can tell, Yahoo is the only company that does that. There's no technical need to do that, except in Yahoo's server, they have to have a record for every email address. So what? You can have a database of 1 billion records as easy as you can have a database of 1 million records. But they are doing this inactivity timeout so that it'll time out for a while, but then you can reactivate it. But if you don't log in a long enough time, then they actually cancel your account and let someone else create it. Change all of your other services to not use that Yahoo account. That's about all you can do if someone else has taken your listing. Yeah, yeah. There's an old joke about you send a bill. Tell the post office to forward all your mail to a post office in Buffalo, and then tell Buffalo to forward it to Chicago. Tell Chicago to forward it to Los Angeles. And whenever you get a bill, mail it to Buffalo. And as long as it's in the mail, it's not your fault. Right. So you have to go. So say you use this Yahoo account at PayPal, you have to log into your PayPal service and change the email recovery address. So it's not the account that you don't have anymore. They might. That's a good point. So they might try to email to send an email. But the fact that you logged in to the account means you have the password for that account. So they'll probably email your new address you typed in to verify that that's really you. Because there are sometimes, every now and then, I'll get an email. In fact, I think I have one here. I'll get an email intended for somebody else. In fact, here's one. There is a famous Irish actor named Stephen Ray, and every now and then I'll get email intended for him because I've got Stephen Ray at Mac.com. And so this one, they thanked me for coming to their meeting. I get these a lot, thanking me for attending their event or helping them raise fundraise. So if I ever want to go to the Presbyterian Church in Ireland, I'm more than welcome.
Just show some ID, you'll be all set.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Ray. Ironically, he's quite a bit older than I am. In fact, there was another Stephen Ray I just found too. So Google yourself and see what shows up is interesting. So he's 69, the actor, but there's also a couple other Stephen Rays now too that are starting to filter up. So one of the tricks is to see how many links it takes to get to you rather than some other Stephen Ray. So there's a StephenRay.net, there's a Stephen-Ray.
Survey says?
Survey says. I won Best Supporting Actor in the BAFTAs.
Oh,
that's nice.
Nice.
I have to go in a lot of pages before it gets to me versus him.
Yeah, I don't think I have any. There are a couple other Dennis Worsters, but I don't think there's.
He's usually the buddy of the leading man.
Uh-huh.
One of his biggest films was V for Vendetta, where he got third bill behind Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving. But he's got a new movie coming out, so every time he's in a new movie, someone will send me the movie poster.
See if you can get your own.
Yeah, he's coming out. He's going to be in War and Peace.
Oh, good.
Now, why did it jump so far?
If somebody makes a Wikipedia page about you, then there'd have to be a disambiguation page.
I am on the Soundbites Wikipedia page.
Okay.
But I don't have my own page.
Not yet.
Not yet. I suppose I could create an account as somebody else and make one for me, but they figured that out and frown upon it.
Yeah, it's very frowned upon.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, we're about out of time here. Question? Yep.
Yes.
There's no way. That has to be a policy site.
Right.
So you can't create that unless they do.
That's correct. It has to be something that they agree to do at their end.
People maybe aware that maybe a couple months ago Amazon did that. So that's a cool thing.
It would not surprise me. I don't remember hearing about that.
Google has done it. Apple has done it. Yep. Yeah, so you go to appleid.apple.com, and one of the options there is to enable two-factor. Some call it, some call it two-factor, some call it two-step.
Right.
Yeah. If you're lucky in your search.
I would Google for it and start that way.
Apple two-factor. Authentication.
Yes. Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
If you get an email from someone you know like that, it probably is their computer, or someone you both know has been infected, and that virus picked someone out of the address book. I get 300 or 400 emails a day from me going to Chinese websites because someone grabbed my address. But if it happens to be someone you know, it's more than likely that someone else you know has been infected.
The underlying infrastructure of the internet, since that was a giant problem maybe 10 years ago, there have been numerous steps that have been made available to internet service providers and to companies who provide email so that they can better prove that they are who they say they are. So if I send mail from the domain name that I own, I have to prove to the people I'm sending mail to that I am the address that I say I am. I have to say my computer is allowed to send mail from that address, from that domain. And it's a couple of extra steps, but it's, again, an additional layer of authentication that I am who I say I am, and therefore the messages I send are more likely to be authentic. And just because something comes from Dennis@maxmarts.com, you can be relatively certain that that is a legitimate, authentic message.
But
it is
right. It's something that each domain, email domain, has to do.
Right.
Many companies are not doing that because it's a pain, and because email was designed from the beginning, in fact, like everything on the internet, with no security in mind, because there were no bad guys then on the internet. It's very hard to add security on top of something else that doesn't have security. So we often say, think of email as a postcard. Anyone along the way could read it if they wanted to. They probably won't, but they could.
Right.
And very, very quick, because we have to pack up and get out. I see the custodian wanting to make sure we're out. Keychain, yeah. I had to pay for it. It was my biggest thing. I would have to pay for it.
It's $50.
But LastPass is completely free and completely cross-platform.
That's true.
Yep. Keychain has done enough for me.
There's
and
another one
they've actually been syncing passwords for a while. The .mac service had password syncing, and then it was gone for a while when iCloud came out, but then they added it back to iCloud.
Yeah.
And it's very handy, especially on an iPad or iPhone, not having to type all those crazy passwords with uppercase and lowercase and symbols. Keychain just remembers it for you.
It really has come a long way. It's much better than it used to be.
All right, so this coming Saturday, 12 o'clock on Jazz 90.1 FM, member-supported Jazz 90.1 FM, is the Sound Bites computer call-in radio show that I'll be on along with Nick and Dave. And then at 3 o'clock, from 3 to 5 at the JCC, we'll be having our Saturday Q&A meeting. And you're welcome to come to that and answer more questions. Next Wednesday, at the Irondequoit United Church of Christ on Titus near Hudson, on Hudson near Titus. On Titus near Hudson, by the House of Guitars.
Across the street, yeah.
Well, across the street from the House of Guitars is the board meeting. If you would like to come to a board meeting and see how they work, then you're more than welcome to. Although that is a good way to get nominated for the board by showing a little initiative.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
and it's mostly an excuse to go out. So we'll probably be heading up to McGregor's on Empire if anyone wants to join us. Cliff, one.
Oh, let me see if I can.
That will be as soon as Dennis sends me the file. That will be on our meeting file archives. All right, thank you all, and we'll see you all next month. Anyone remember what the meeting is going to be?
It'll be great. That's what
It'll
it'll
be great. That's for sure. Yes. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. Let me close out of all of this stuff, and we will say stop.